I never thought I'd be the guy who gets blindsided like this. I mean, I always knew Lisa was a bit of a handful. She's the kind of woman who can be bitchy, sarcastic, and totally dismissive one minute, then all sweetness and charm the next, depending on her mood. But I thought that was just her way of keeping life interesting. We'd been married for about 8 years now, and honestly, I'd always believed we were solid. Sure, we had our fights, but it was normal, right? Or so I thought. Looking back, there were little signs I guess I ignored. She started working late more often, sometimes claiming it was just work, but I'd catch her sneaking her phone away or deleting messages. She'd get weirdly defensive when I asked about it, telling me I was paranoid, that I didn't trust her. She called me insecure when I pushed her about who she was talking to, especially late at night. Still, I trusted her mostly. I mean, I had my own issues, my job as a software engineer, and the fact that I recently got some high-tech prosthetic limbs after a terrible accident. They're amazing, really, with neural interfaces that connect directly to my brain. It's like having superpowers, and I love it. It's made my life better in a lot of ways. But those enhancements also meant that my senses are more tuned in than ever. I can pick up on small things, subtle changes I wouldn't notice normally. I guess that's how I first noticed something was off. It started with little glitches, say, my neural interface detecting data traffic I shouldn't have been able to see. At first, I thought maybe it was a bug or some server error. I connected to my system logs and looked deeper, and that's when I saw it. A shared cloud folder that shouldn't have been there but was. And inside it, files and communications I didn't recognize, all time-stamped around the time I noticed Lisa acting weird, more secretive, more dismissive, like she was hiding something. Then I saw the names. One stood out, Dr. Mark Evans, a top surgeon I'd used for my prosthetics, known for his cutting-edge cybernetic enhancements. The man's a genius, but I never suspected he'd be involved in anything shady. Yet here it was, files linked directly to his account, accessed from Lisa's device. It was all encrypted. But I could see enough. Conversations, images, even recorded video snippets. I felt a cold rush of nausea. I knew what I was looking at. Lisa, she'd been cheating on me with my own surgeon. It was like a punch to the gut, but I wasn't surprised, just devastated. I kept digging and found even more evidence, and every new bit was like a fresh wound opening up. The worst part, I'd been blind to it all, thinking I knew everything about her, but the truth was, she'd been lying from the start. I was furious, confused, and honestly crushed. My mind raced with questions. How long has this been going on? Why her? And how could she do this to me, knowing my body and mind are so intertwined with this tech? It felt like a betrayal on every level, not just of the relationship, but of myself. I wanted to confront her right away, but part of me knew I needed a plan. I wasn't going to let her spin her lies or deny it. I needed to be ready, to have all the facts, and to decide what I was going to do next. This was just the beginning of a long, painful road. When I finally confronted Lisa about what I found, she was half expecting it. She looked annoyed, like I was bothering her, and her tone was dismissive from the start. "Oh, so now you're spying on me, huh? Really mature," she snapped, crossing her arms and rolling her eyes. I felt my blood boil, but I kept calm. I laid out what I discovered, showing her the files I had access to, the timestamps, the videos, the messages. She scoffed and shrugged, trying to play it off like I was making a big deal out of nothing. "Look, it's not what you think," she said, smirking, her voice dripping with contempt. "Honestly, I don't see why you're making this a huge problem. Mark's just a friend. We've been working on some projects together, that's all. And yeah, maybe we've had some drinks, but it's not like we're sleeping together every night." She laughed, that bitter, bitchy laugh that I'd come to hate. "You're so paranoid, Chris. You think I'd cheat on you with some tech guy just because I wanted to? Please, you're overreacting." I couldn't believe her lies. I'd seen the files, the videos, the messages. I knew she was lying. I knew she'd been sleeping with him. But her denial was relentless, like she thought if she kept lying, I'd just forget I saw anything. It made me angrier because I'd always tried to trust her, to believe in us. And now I felt like I was being played for a fool. Just the thought of her being with someone like Mark, someone I trusted and admired professionally, made my stomach turn. How could she turn my world upside down like this? How could she betray me so casually? The emotional roller coaster hit hard that night. I was furious, yes, but also heartbroken. I kept replaying the moments. The times I thought she was just working late, the times she dismissed my questions with that bitchy smirk, the way she'd lie to my face. It all felt like a punch to the gut. I wasn't just angry at her betrayal, I was angry at myself for not seeing it earlier, for being so blind to what was happening right under my nose. I felt stupid for trusting her, for believing we had something real, when she was out there with him, sharing her body with someone I once thought was just a friend. It crushed me to realize that the woman I loved, the woman I thought loved me, was so capable of deceit and betrayal. But I also knew I couldn't just sit there and let her brush this off. I had proof, cold and clear. I had to decide what to do next. I was hurt, sure, but I also knew I had to get some space from her, clear my head. I told her I needed some time, that I'd think about everything, and that I wasn't going to stay in a relationship where I was being lied to. She rolled her eyes again, calling me overreactive, but there was a flicker of worry behind her attitude. Deep down, I think she knew I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I didn't want to be the guy who just accepts being cheated on, but I also knew I needed to think long and hard before making any rash decisions. That night I went to bed feeling numb. I hugged my prosthetic arm, the one thing that always kept me grounded, but even that felt cold and distant. Now, the betrayal wasn't just about her cheating. It was about everything I thought I knew about her, about us. I kept asking myself if this was something I could forgive or if I was just fooling myself. My mind kept circling back to the idea that I'd been duped, played for a fool by the woman I trusted most. This wasn't just infidelity. It was a violation of everything I believed in. And I had no idea how to move forward from here. In the following days, I knew I had to be strategic. I didn't want to just explode and do something I'd regret. I spent hours going through the files, trying to piece together how long this had been going on, how deep her involvement was with Mark. It wasn't just a one-time thing. The evidence suggested they'd been sneaking around for months, possibly even since before I got my prosthetic upgrade. That hurt worse than anything. I realized she'd been lying to me while I was trusting her with my body and my life. My mind kept spinning, but I also started noticing other things. Her phone was more guarded than ever. She'd change her passwords, delete messages, and be suspiciously quick to check her device whenever I came near. She started leaving her phone in the bathroom or locking it in her purse when I was around. It was obvious she knew she was hiding something, but she was trying to cover her tracks. I felt a strange mix of anger and sadness. Anger that she deceived me so blatantly, and sadness because I hated that I was losing someone I'd loved. One night, I decided to confront her again. I told her I knew everything, that I had seen the files, the videos, the messages. I told her I was hurt, betrayed, and that I couldn't just pretend it hadn't happened. Her reaction was classic Lisa. She got defensive, dismissive, and aggressive. "You're overreacting," she snapped. "This is just some stupid fling. I don't even care about Mark. It's not like I love him or anything. It's just sex, Chris. It's not a big deal." Her words stung, but I knew better. I knew there was more to it. She was lying, trying to minimize what she'd done, trying to make me feel guilty for catching her. I felt the emotional walls crumbling inside me. I was angry, yes, but also devastated. How could she be so callous? How could she twist the truth like that? I looked at her with a mixture of disgust and heartbreak. I told her that I couldn't stay with someone who lied to my face and cheated on me, that I was done wasting my time on someone who clearly didn't respect our vows or our marriage. I told her I was going to leave, that I needed space to think, and that I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. Her response was a bitter laugh. "Fine, go, see if I care. You're just a broken man who's too insecure to handle a little fun." That word fun, it made my blood boil. She was trivializing what she did, acting like it was some harmless mistake she could brush off. But for me, it wasn't just a mistake. It was a slap in the face. I'd been there for her, supported her, trusted her, and this is how she repaid me. With lies, betrayal, and a blatant disregard for everything we once had. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. That night I stayed awake for hours, replaying everything. I started questioning my own worth. Was I so unlovable that she had to find affection somewhere else? Did I do something wrong? Or was she just a bitchy, selfish woman who couldn't keep her legs closed? These thoughts tormented me, but deep down I knew I'd made my decision. I couldn't keep living in denial. I had to end it even if it hurt like hell. My prosthetic limbs, my neural interface, they're part of me now. They're supposed to be my strength, my advantage in life. But that night I felt more vulnerable than ever. My body, my mind, everything I'd worked so hard for felt tainted. I was broken and I didn't know if I'd ever be able to trust her again. That betrayal cut so deep, I wondered if I'd ever be whole again. I wanted to believe I could move on, that I'd find someone who'd respect me, but right now, I just felt numb. All I knew was I'd never forget the shock of discovering her betrayal, and I'd never let her forget what she did. After making the decision to leave, I knew I had to plan carefully. I wasn't about to just pack my bags and walk away without thinking it through. Lisa would likely try to spin it, guilt-trip me, or worse, try to guilt me into staying. I had to be prepared for her bitchy, manipulative side. I started gathering evidence, screenshots of the files I'd saved, logs of her suspicious activities, even some recordings I managed to secretly capture when she was rambling about how she was just bored or needed excitement. I knew I needed to be smart about this, not emotional. The craziest part was how my body, connected to all this tech, kept alerting me to weird things. My neural interface detected strange data traffic coming from her phone and her devices, creepy stuff that I couldn't ignore anymore. I also discovered that she'd been tampering with my medical records, trying to hide how long she'd been involved with Mark. I found encrypted messages that they'd exchanged through obscure apps that she thought I'd never find. Every new piece of evidence added fuel to my resolve. One afternoon, I finally confronted her for what I hoped was the last time. I told her I knew everything, that I'd been spying, but only because I had to understand the extent of her betrayal. She rolled her eyes, sneered at me, and spat. "You're just jealous because I found someone better than you. You're too insecure to handle a woman who's smarter and more successful. That's why you're so obsessed with all this tech stuff, because you're weak." That remark hit me hard. She was trying to make me doubt myself, as if her cheating was my fault. But I refused to be manipulated. I told her I was done and I wanted her to leave right then. Her reaction: she threw a glass at the wall, smashing it, then started screaming about how I was a controlling psycho, that I'd always been paranoid and unreasonable. "You think I'd cheat on you with some hacker or some tech geek? Please. I have better taste," she spat, her eyes blazing with rage. But I wasn't falling for it. I knew her game. I knew she'd been lying to my face, and I had the proof. I told her she wasn't welcome to stay, that I was calling a lawyer and getting a restraining order if necessary. She snapped insults, tried to guilt me with tears and crocodile apologies, but I just walked out of that house with my head high. I knew I had to leave her behind for my own sanity and safety. My cybernetic enhancements, my medical implants, they're part of me, but also a reminder that I was vulnerable now. I was angry, humiliated, and heartbroken all at once, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. If she was willing to betray me like this, I didn't want her in my life anymore. That night, I stayed awake again, processing everything. I felt like a fool for trusting her, and I kept thinking about how I'd been so blind to what was happening around me. I wondered if she'd continue her affair or if she'd already moved on. The worst part was the feeling that I'd lost not just a wife, but also my sense of security, my confidence, the part of me that believed in honesty and loyalty. Now, that trust was shattered, replaced by suspicion and regret. My body still felt connected to the tech, but I knew I'd have to disable or at least tighten security on my neural interface to prevent her from ever messing with my system again. Living alone now, I realized how much I depended on that tech, my limbs, my senses, my mind. But I also saw that I was stronger than I thought. My cybernetic enhancements had given me incredible strength physically, but the real power came from my ability to see through the lies, to face the truth head-on. I learned that betrayal cuts deep, no matter what kind of upgrades or defenses you have. And I promised myself I'd never let someone manipulate or betray me like that again. The road to healing was just beginning, but I knew I'd come out of this smarter, tougher, and more aware of what I deserved. In the aftermath of everything, I decided I had to take control of my own life again. The betrayal by Lisa left me feeling broken, but also oddly liberated. I realized I'd been living in a kind of fog, trusting blindly because I wanted to believe in her, in our marriage. But now, with all the evidence laid out and her manipulative lies exposed, I saw clearly that she wasn't the person I thought she was. She was manipulative, selfish, and willing to betray everything we'd built together, including the trust I placed in her, just for her own thrill. I started by disconnecting from her completely. I changed all passwords, secured my neural interface with new encryption, and installed additional security measures on my connected devices. I didn't want her or anyone else, Mark included, to have access to my most sensitive data ever again. I also reached out to a lawyer, knowing that legal steps were necessary to protect myself from her potential retribution. I didn't trust her not to try something sneaky, especially since she'd already shown a talent for deception. That was when I realized how much my cybernetic enhancements had become intertwined with my sense of safety and security. They're supposed to empower me, but I saw how vulnerable I'd been, too. Meanwhile, I started focusing on myself. I threw myself into physical therapy, pushing my prosthetic limbs to new limits. I wanted to feel strong again, not just physically, but emotionally. I spent hours learning about how to better protect my digital and physical space. I even looked into therapy, not just for the trauma of betrayal, but to rebuild my confidence and trust in myself. It was a long process. Every day brought a new wave of anger, sadness, or frustration, sometimes all at once. But I told myself I wouldn't let this ruin me. Instead, I'd use it as a catalyst for change. One thing that surprised me was how much my enhancements played a role in this healing process. My neural interface allowed me to track suspicious activity, monitor my systems, and even disable certain features if I felt threatened. It became an extension of my resolve to stay safe and vigilant. I also blocked Lisa completely, removing her from all social media, email, and contacts. The last thing I needed was her trying to pull me back into her web of lies or guilt-tripping me into forgiving her. Honestly, I didn't want her back. Not after what she did. I realized that the trust I'd given her was something she'd shattered beyond repair. But despite all that, I still have moments of weakness. Nights when I lie awake and wonder if I'll ever really trust again. I ask myself if I'll ever find someone who truly respects me for who I am, flaws and all. Right now, I'm still healing, still trying to piece myself back together. I know I'll get there eventually. My upgrades are a symbol of how far I've come, how much I've fought to stay alive and to rebuild my sense of normalcy. I'm slowly learning to live with the pain, to accept that some wounds run too deep for quick fixes. What I do know is this: betrayal is a brutal thing, but it's also a lesson. I've learned that even with all the tech and enhancements, you're still vulnerable if you don't guard your heart and your mind. I've learned that trust is fragile, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to fully repair. And I've learned that sometimes you have to cut people out of your life, no matter how much it hurts, to protect yourself and to move forward. I still have a long road ahead, but I feel stronger now, more aware of what I need and what I deserve. And I refuse to let her, Lisa, take that away from me. Looking back, I realize that this whole ordeal has changed me in ways I never expected. It's not just about the betrayal or the anger. It's about understanding how vulnerable I was despite all my tech and enhancements. My body, my mind, they're powerful tools, but they don't guarantee emotional safety. That's something I had to learn the hard way. I used to think that with all my cybernetic upgrades, I was invincible in some way, untouchable. But now I see that real strength comes from within, from knowing when to protect yourself emotionally and mentally. I've come to accept that Lisa was never the person I thought she was. She was always bitchy, manipulative, and selfish, using her words as weapons, twisting truths, and hiding her real motives behind a veneer of charm. I was blind to her true nature because I wanted to believe in us, in the life we built. But the truth is, her betrayal was about her own selfish needs, not about me or us. That realization has been hard to swallow, but it's also been freeing. It means I no longer have to carry her guilt or her lies. Now, I focus on rebuilding myself. I reconnect with friends I'd neglected. I spend more time on my passions, coding, working on my cybernetic systems, and even exploring some new ideas for self-improvement. I know I'll be more cautious moving forward. I've learned to trust my instincts more, to read between the lines, and to guard my heart as fiercely as I guard my digital systems. My enhancements are no longer just tools. They're a reminder of how much I've fought to stay alive and to stay true to myself. The experience has also made me more aware of how real trust must be earned and protected. No amount of tech can substitute for honesty and respect. I've realized that the most valuable upgrade I have is my mind and my ability to see the truth. And that's what I'll carry with me from now on. The understanding that vulnerability isn't a weakness, but a chance to grow stronger once you recognize what's truly important. I've come to accept that some people aren't worth the pain they cause, no matter how much you love them. I won't let her betrayal define me or break me. Instead, I see it as a lesson, a brutal but necessary one. The scars she left aren't just on my body but deep in my soul. Yet every day I remind myself that I am more than what was lost. I am resilient. I am capable of healing, of trusting again, and of moving forward. My cybernetic enhancements are a part of me, but so is my capacity to forgive, to learn, and to grow stronger from every blow life deals. In the end, I know I'll be okay. Not because I have the best upgrades or the sharpest tech, but because I've learned what truly matters: integrity, honesty, and self-respect. Lisa might have been a part of my life, but she's no longer a part of my future. And I am finally ready to build a new one founded on the lessons I've learned, stronger than ever before.